are San Jose.
Siamo San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
Welcome to We Are San Jose. These are your stories.
Hello, my name is Ann Getzla. That's my husband's name. My maiden name was Meyer. And my connection to San Jose started in July of 1957 when my father, who had been working here for a year as a right-of-way agent for Santa Clara County Flood Control, finally was able to find a place to bring his family to, and it was very difficult at that time to rent, buy, or anything in the way of residence. It was pretty static. There wasn't a lot of movement then. I'm a native Californian. My dad's a native Californian from Los Angeles. And he was very happy in Los Angeles, but because of the smog, we had to leave. And flood control in Santa Clara County needed someone because we've got a drought now, but back then we had too much. It was flooding. And getting right away was difficult, and they sort of stole my dad to come up here and help Santa Clara County deal with everybody. And my dad had grown up in an Italian American community. So when we moved up here, here were all these Italian Americans, and we got along famously, but our heritage is not Italian at all. So I'd say I'm an honorary Italian. So while he was busy going all over the place, we lived downtown for a while on the corner of First and Heading, which is now a bank, and I watched San Jose start to grow. Because when we moved up here, nothing had happened yet. San Jose and the surrounding cities didn't really start changing until the 60s and 70s when they got a lot of money for urban renewal. And I've always felt that they urban renewed and over-renewed. They tore down a lot of things that now people say, oh, it's too bad they did that. And I was always very interested in architecture and the arts. My ambition when I graduated from high school in 1962 was to go to San Jose State, find a way to make a living because artists don't make very much money, but I wanted to leave something that was beautiful, creative, that children and people in the community would enjoy, which I didn't succeed in doing. I enhanced the community in another way, but the experience at that time was I just turned 13 in August. I'm sort of a native because my dad, being a native of Los Angeles, during World War II was in the Navy, and he ended up stationed in Alameda Naval Air Station. And he was a ground crew for, a part of a crew for the amphibious planes that served in the Pacific. And because of his expertise in preventing planes from crashing, every time that he thought he was going to be shipped overseas, his officer said, no, you're not going, I need you here. So native Californian was zipping back and forth between his obligations with the Navy and his family down in Southern California. He met my mom, who was a WAC, in Memphis while he was training. They got married, and eventually they had me at the Alameda Naval Air Station. So I have dual identities, Southern California, Italian neighborhood, moved up to San Jose, plopped right back down into the middle of the Italians, and a lot of the people running the county and city were Italians, and a lot of the farmers. So it was very agrarian, and it was a special opportunity because I could hop on my bike and go downtown to see the movies, and my parents were fairly concerned about me gallivanting around too much as a girl, but you had a certain amount of freedom and not too much concern. So I talked with the old timers at St. James Park, which was really wonderful. I learned a lot about the early history of the area. I totally did not expect to see the changes that happened. I was fortunate to come here before Lockheed. We came here in summer of '57 and Lockheed moved in the following year. And the irony is my dad worked for Lockheed in 1937 right out of high school from Garfield High School in Southern California, which is part of East Los Angeles. And it was a joke because we moved into a neighborhood where there were a lot of the people who'd been transported up here from Lockheed, and Dad said, I never thought I'd have anything to do with Lockheed again, because he didn't like being an employee of Lockheed. So what I experienced was the agriculture, the blossoms that everybody talks about, the pictures that you see, the wonderful aromas, the breeze coming over the gap between Saratoga into San Jose, and we lived over in West San Jose, and there's Prospect Road, and I mean it was just like being out in the country because it wasn't that well developed. The road was rutted, it was left over from the Model T times. Stevens Creek Boulevard, if you're on the Santa Clara side, it was one way. If you're on the San Jose side of the county, there's another. So when you had rain, and I was on the school bus, we were the only ones that weren't getting flooded out. This continued until I got married in 1968, and among other things, if you went, just about a mile out of North San Jose on North First Street, it was all agricultural. And I just remember a lot of us did cutting cots and so forth. This is all things that people do not accept. They do not understand how built up this place became. And then once we had, not Hewlett-Packard, but Apple really, made the difference with what this county became. I like to think that it was a nice blend, but I really miss, like, my husband worked for a private person who maintained the local AM/FM radio transmitters, and Radio Keene had theirs off of Story Road, and there was another one off North First Street. I don't know what station it was, it doesn't exist anymore, but that was literally muck, and they grew trees and flowers, and they grew bell peppers, and one time he said, why don't you come out with me? And we literally just drove right out of civilization into the country, into the muck, and I had boots up to here, and it was, it was like just really nitty gritty. And I would like people to know how much opportunities you have now versus what we didn't have. And I just have to do an aside. Santa Clara University did not accept women. I tried to join the ROTC. They wouldn't let me because I was a woman. I'm very happy to live in Santa Clara County, but it took a long time to be able to be a woman in my own right with a college degree. And I went to work for social services, and that's where I did my creative things and made a lot of beautiful experiences for people and for children. So there's no artwork with my name on it, but there's a lot of people that I feel, because I followed my father's orientation to service. I've done a lot of service. I've been involved with the arts and the museum, the California Theater that Mr. Kopp mentioned. I have a great sense of pride of what's good about San Jose, and there's a lot of things that I'd still like to see move on, but it was a good place to be, and there's problems we have, but we've got good-hearted people working, and it's amazing to meet them when you do and to see where we've come. But it's wonderful that I was here before it all exploded and became a big corporate entity, and it was a small town, and a lot of things happening were local, and everybody supported you. The Rotary came out. I was a Girl Scout member. We volunteered everywhere, saw the Harlem Globetrotters. There were all kinds of experiences that I think I wouldn't have had if I'd stayed in Los Angeles, but got to have because of the way San Jose was growing and had a heart for all of us. And that's my San Jose past, and there's still a lot of future to go.
Hello, my name is Anne Marie Greco, and I'm here with my very good friend, Leona Costin. Leona and I grew up together in San Jose, within blocks of each other. We both lived off the Alameda, went to St. Leo's Grammar School on Ray Street. Both of us are here today to talk about what it was like in those blocks, mostly between Bellarmine and St. Leo's, and along the Alameda that has changed so much. It was very much like its own little town back then. I grew up the daughter, the youngest of 5 children. My parents had been here since the turn of the century, and I have to say hello to my mom and dad. I'm very blessed to be here in this location talking about the history of San Jose, because my mother grew up on Divine Street. Her house that she grew up in was torn down to make way for 87. And then my father's cannery, or my grandfather's cannery, was on the other side of Julian, the north side, on Autumn Street. And unfortunately, I don't have enough time to talk about that history, but I'd like to concentrate on our growing up and what it was like to live in San Jose. We were both born in 1954, and it was a magical time. I have to say that our life growing up was could have been a black and white movie that you would see on TV, something on Turner Classic Movies. All the kids from the neighborhood, there were probably at least 100.
At least.
Lived on the streets between, say, University Avenue, all the way up through Yosemite. Yosemite Street had many families that went to St. Leo's, Sierra, Hanchett, Shasta, Martin Avenue. And
Yosemite.
all those people, those kids that I went to school with, a lot of their parents were people that my parents knew growing up, going to San Jose High School or Notre Dame. So for me, it wasn't just going to school and meeting new kids. I already knew the families. I knew the older siblings. My parents had grown up with the parents. And so it really was like a family. We were all really, really, really close. It was a magic time. We had the town theater, and that was when it showed family movies. It did make a transition into pornography for a while, but when I was growing up, we had the town theater. Next door was Schwinn's Bicycles, and that was the only place you could buy a bicycle, or one of the few places. There were at least 3 or 4 old-fashioned hair salons. Pete's where Pete's is on the corner of Martin, is it Martin or Hanchett, and the Alameda. That was a Bob and Curl. Next door at All American Fitness, that was Rexall Drugs. Now, if you wanted anything in the world, you didn't have to drive anywhere. You could go up and down the Alameda and go to Rexall. Franco's Market was there on the corner of Shasta and the Alameda. That was before, and then later on it became the employment office for a while. I think now it is a little Thai nursery. Then we had Andy's Pet Shop.
Andy's Pet Shop.
All the kids, we go there every day after
Get
school.
our animals.
Get our Marglad's. Anybody had a wedding, you'd go to Marglad's. Then anytime there was a wedding or birthday, Greenlee's Bakery. What else was down there? And then the Safeway was there, which is now, I think, that's not U-Haul. It's another, I think, auto store. That was our Safeway. And then across the street was Bank of America, which is now U-Haul. That was our Bank of America. And then the roller rink. The roller rink was across the street from Greenlee's Bakery. And I mean, we lived there every Saturday. And the thing is back then, we didn't have to take any cars. I mean, maybe it wasn't the safest thing to do, but my parents weren't worried about us being out on the streets. I mean, we would leave the house at 9 in the morning, and then we'd come home at 5, and we'd be running back and forth up and down the Alameda, going in and out of each other's homes, maybe dropping in the roller rink for some skating. Oh God, I don't know, Leona's house, which was on Cleves Avenue.
Off the Alameda.
Her parents were, had been here. They were Sicilian descent, came in from New York.
New York.
And that was the clubhouse that all the kids from St. Leo's, all through the way through Bellarmine, we'd always end up at their house. And that was another magical thing about where we lived is, you know, all of us went to St. Leo's, and then most of us either went on a presentation to Notre Dame or Bellarmine. So we all stayed close friends from kindergarten all the way through high school. And now we just celebrated our 60th birthday last year, and many of the kids that we went to kindergarten with at St. Leo's, we were all there. So all of us have remained very good friends, and those that are living in different parts of the country, we're always connected to Facebook. One of our classmates, Michael Martin, is on Broadway seeing, this is plug for you, Michael. Oh God, what's the name of this show? It Should Have Been You. Anyway, Michael was a good friend. His parents were good friends of my parents, and back then too, right about the time in the 50s, I was born in 54, all of those homes on the Alameda had all been, you know, mansions of people that, you know, lived there. The Campeses lived there, and so many people lived there that were friends of my parents. And then just about the late 50s, they started moving out from the Alameda. They started turning those into office buildings, and a lot of those people, it was the thing to do was to move up to the country club, San Jose Country Club, or Willow Glen. And I used to see a lot of the homes all over the county because my mother was one of the very first, back in the 40s, real estate, women real estate agents in Santa Clara County, and she was the first woman real estate and insurance broker in Santa Clara County, and this was in the 40s. And so my mother she had a network of people that she would sell their homes and sell them another one, and she did that all the way up until her 80s. And I would travel all around the county with her and go to open houses, and so I was very proud of that my mother accomplished that. It was after World War II. My father's business had, his father, their cannery had closed, and my mother just was very strong and took it upon herself to go in, and she raised 5 kids in our beautiful home, and
on Moore Street.
And we were very, very, very fortunate to have lived then, because it was such a magical time. It's hard to describe the quietness and the freedom, and it was just beautiful. It was so much slower, and even my mother, who lived to be 104, she talked about in her 90s, she said, oh my God, she said, things are so fast now. She goes, I get more mail in one day or 1 week than I would get in 2 months. And so my mother saw a complete change, you know, obviously from the agriculture of the 1920s to what Silicon Valley is today, which I still have to say, despite all of the growth, San Jose for us is still a small town, because those of us who have been here for so long, everywhere we go, downtown, Lincoln Avenue, Willow Glen, wherever, somebody we know from the past, and it's wonderful. And so for us, it will always be a very small town, a very homey town, a very welcoming town, a place where good friendships.
Valley of the Heart's Delight.
So anyway, thank you very much for letting us being here, and that is our story, briefly, of our lives in San Jose.
Hi, I'm Paul Normandin. This is my father-in-law, Normandin, and we're here to tell the story of our family business here in San Jose. I represent the 5th generation. My dad represents the 4th generation of our family business, and I'll turn it over to him. He can start from when we came into California. Dad?
Well, my great-grandfather was an originator, and he was iron blacksmith, and got into wood carving. So he made violins, he played the music, and they started with buggies. They made the buggies, and we had our own manufacturing company back then. 1875 in January they started, and we've been in San Jose the whole time. So it's been a great city, great support of our business over all these years, and
So what did Gramps, when he came down, or I should say great-great-grandfather for me, when he came down from Montreal, he hooked up with a gentleman by the name of, was it Hatman?
Hatman.
And they started together. Our ancestor was a blacksmith. Hatman was one of the woodworkers, and they started building the custom buggies for San Jose dignitaries. And then when I think what happened was they ended up becoming a franchise buggy dealer. And then in the early 1900s, when automobiles came out, what were some of the first automobiles we sold way back then?
The first one was a Franklin, and then we got into Hudson Essex. We had a Chevrolet one time, but we had numerous cars over the years, and but our big thing over the years has been our service. That's what's kept us alive, the main thing over the years. So San Jose's really supported us very well, and we tried to give good service to all of our people.
So in the early 1900s, we were selling buggies, went into the automobile business. In fact, one of the Franklins that we sold in 1915, we were able to acquire back from the family. And it sits on our showroom floor today at the dealership. We've been on in various locations where we were, San Carlos. What other locations were we in downtown
Well,
San Jose?
West Santa Clara Street, where the Sharks are now, that was our property originally. It was a building was there, but we actually had 3 locations in San Jose: 2nd Street, Santa Clara Street. And my grandfather was helpful in building the De Anza Hotel way back. And so then we went out to West Santa Clara Street, where the Shark Tank is now. And they thought at that time it was way out of the way. And as we know today, it's only a few blocks. So it was interesting, the foresight that he had and merchandising techniques. So it worked out very well for us.
And speaking of the De Anza Hotel, is that about the same time the Better Business Bureau came about?
Pretty much, yeah. He started Louis O, my grandfather. He started the Business Bureau. I can't remember the year, but it was right about that time.
Yeah. So he started the Better Business, or one of the guys that started the Better Business Bureau. Heavy investor in property about the time of the Great Depression. Tell us about that one. What happened? They had a nickname for him as well.
Well, my grandfather was very involved in the community, and he owned a lot of stock and everything, but for some reason, he got together and they sold all the stock, and they bought all kinds of property. And they got on a ship. What was the name of that thing?
The SS Manolo. And that was right before the crash of the stock market.
And so while they were out floating around the world, the stock market went in the sewer. And my grandfather had a new name. They called him Lucky Louie, because he just was ahead of the market, you know. It was great. So
one of the reasons we're able to survive. One of the reasons we're still around. And then after that, so he came back. It's come down through the generations. We've been able to sustain our business based on public on the service that we provide and the support of San Jose, like my dad was saying. But also we moved out to the location we're at now. That was kind of your doing, wasn't it? That was something that everyone thought you were a little crazy. in the mid to late
That
60s,
was
right?
Prickly Pear Orchard that belonged to the Rubinos. And so we got into that property out there. We picked up, I think it's
10 acres, yeah.
and built a dealership. And Carl Chevrolet, he came out at the same time. So we started that, and now it's a major automobile row. So it's interesting.
But at the time, what was it? I mean, I thought everyone said it was way out in the middle of nowhere.
It was.
It's going to be hard to sustain a business out in the middle of the orchards where no one lived. And as we know, San Jose's grown and it's come to engulf our dealership around the area.
And all it was is apricots and prunes way back.
Yep. Valley of Heart's Delight, right?
That's right.
So we've had a lot of blessings and a lot of good luck over the years, and we can thank San Jose for where we are. And the nice part, we have the next generation coming up. We have the 6th generation is now helping us out at the dealership and doing real well. So hopefully we'll have another 130 plus years in the great city of San Jose. And that's our story.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.